Welcome to NewYorkBIO's virtual breakfast series, a digital program started in 2020, bringing you fireside chats with leaders from across the healthcare spectrum. This week's episode features John Prufeta, the chairman and general partner of Medical Excellence Capital.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Hawks-Bland, and I am the CEO at NewYorkBIO. We're thrilled you're here with us for another edition of our virtual breakfast series. And as we lead up to our annual meeting on September 27th, every week you will hear me mention, do not forget to register. We are planning still to be in person and virtual. So depending on your comfort level, you have two options for joining us for this important meeting. And we will be requiring proof of vaccination for those who attend in person, so that we can, I would highly doubt that we have any large percentage of our ecosystem that is not protected against COVID-19 via vaccination. But in any event, we will actually require you to show us that so that we can safely gather in person. Thank you, especially to our partner at VWR for sponsoring this breakfast series. And with that, I will give you my usual housekeeping notes. So as we go through our conversation today with John, please put your questions either in the chat or the Q&A. And Derek and I will get to those and give them to John throughout our conversation as they make sense. With that, I will turn it over to Derek to do a full introduction of our guest, and we'll get our conversation started. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and good morning, John. It's great to have you here. We're fortunate a lot of times to have, the people that are kind of behind the wave of, advancement that New York is seeing. And it's always great to see new funds come into play and new people kind of jump into the system, keep things moving. So it's great to have you here this morning. We're really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
It's awesome to have you here. So we love to kick off with a bit of an origin story. So before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of Medical Excellence Capital, why don't we talk a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are, because you have a really interesting background. You've touched on academic innovation, company operation, fund origination. You've kind of run the whole gamut. So why don't you give us a little bit of background about how you got here?
Sure, very happy to do that, and thank you very much to both of you and NewYorkBIO, which is an incredible company. As a newbie to the industry, I just want to say how much I've enjoyed and valued the information that you have, the sphere that you've been able to create is really incredible to me. And as Derek well knows, I think I've used it fairly well as well. A number of great contacts and new friendships have happened because of the association. So I just wanted to say, that it's a very valuable organization, at least from my perspective. I've really found it so. So in terms of background, I come from, my original background was I wasn't supposed to be in healthcare. I was actually recruited out of school to be a consultant in financial services, which I thought would be a very exciting and fascinating career. And I had an extraordinary 6 weeks in that industry before my boss came in and said, we need somebody in healthcare, and you look like you might qualify for that. I had no idea why, and was tapped to be in the healthcare industry. But I think it's informative from the standpoint that I always thought that it was destined to be that way. I grew up as a child of a disabled individual. My mother had MS, and she was disabled from the time we were 11 on and lived an abbreviated life. And so I always thought that, maybe it was predestined to be in the healthcare industry. But in any case, my boss comes in and says, I need you in healthcare. And I began working in two areas. One was the burgeoning area of managed care. So I worked on two ends that were not too friendly with each other. One end, I was working on the early managed care world. And then the other end, I was working with academic medical centers. Not a friendly environment between the two of them, especially in the 1980s. And gravitated more towards the academic medical center world, which I thought was just absolutely fascinating and incredible. So I worked with a couple of partners, or for a couple of partners, and then became national partner in charge of the academic medical center practice. Worked with about 30 academic medical centers around the country, and fell more in love with the industry, the people, the innovation, the incredible work that physicians and scientists and physician scientists do in the world. Always fascinated me, and it's something that I've highly admired. And I did that for a number of years. Was was an executive on loan for a while to New York Hospital, and worked with them very, very closely with Dave Skinner and his team, and began a relationship with Hank Greenberg, the former chairman at AIG, when he was the chairman of that organization. And that was an informative part and really an important part of my career as well. I worked with that organization twice in two big projects, and then did consulting for them for a 15-year period. Quite interesting. And then I was asked to run a publicly held healthcare technology company called Medix, which I spent a little over 3 years as first the interim and then the permanent chief executive officer in a turnaround time. I got to know the SEC very well, which I don't want to know them very well. And I got to know 13,000 shareholders fairly well, because they were calling irately to see when we were going to turn that company around. But we got it turned around, and I happily left and went back to what I loved, which was academic medical centers. During that period, though, I had decided that I wanted to build a company. So I self-engineered a company and a job for myself. And I started a company called Medical Excellence International. And Medical Excellence International is certainly one of the first, what they call private health advisory companies. And I'm going to take a drink, actually.
Please. We encourage our guests and our listeners to have their coffee.
You're encouraged drinking.
Yes,
I do as well.
Your choice of beverage. I'm not choosing your beverage.
If the folks at Lagavulin are listening, we're welcome to additional beverage sponsors if we want to open that up on the program.
So I started a company called Medical Excellence International, which was one of the first what they call private health advisory companies. It basically, we coined the phrase family office for healthcare. And the idea being that the United States is an incredible destination for people in distress from around the world. The US academic medical system is an incredible resource to the entire world in terms of determining the nature, causes, and the treatment of esoteric and regular diseases. So what I did was I built it on the relationships of the academic medical centers that I had. I went to the deans, I went to the administration of these organizations, and basically what I said is, I will serve as your marketing organization. I'm going to go to Eastern Europe, I'm going to go to China, I'm going to go to mainland Europe, and I'm going to market a premium product that is designed to bring individuals into the United States to get their health care. Called it Medical Excellence International. And since then, over the years, I've developed a partnership with, well, first of all, I have to give some credit to my wife as well. She joined me after being a managing director of the Fleming family, and she joined me at Medical Excellence 10 years ago, and now runs that organization. But Medical Excellence has operations in China, well, we have offices in Shanghai, London, Moscow, and in New York. And we operate in about 12 countries around the world, where we precept patients, both for preventative medicine, as well as for very advanced and esoteric needs that individuals have. We have about 1,000 people that use our services every year, and we get about 250 new cases every year. About 60% of those cases are cancer. So we see a lot of cancer patients, and these are individuals who either haven't gotten the right diagnosis yet, or they have the right diagnosis, but they want to get treatment with the very best in the world, which generally and overwhelmingly is here in the United States. So that's a partnership between myself, Hank Greenberg, the former chairman of AIG, and Roman Abramovich, the owner of the Chelsea football team. So we have a very solid financial base, and it's been a very interesting company, and I love it. As a result of that, because Derek, you asked me how I got here. I got to Medical Excellence Capital via Medical Excellence International. And the reason for that is one of our members, who I can say his name because he's my partner now in business, is named Alexander Nessus. And Alexander is a very successful metals and mining individual who has used Medical Excellence International extensively, and his family has, and they've had a great experience with a couple of pretty heavy needs. And as a result of that, he began to admire not only what we do, I think less so, but more so, the American medical system, and wanted to invest into it. So in 2020, 2 or 3 weeks before COVID hit us really hard, we had dinner in New York, and he proposed the idea of me leading a life sciences venture capital company. We started that company in November with a first close of a little more than $100 million, and have moved forward since.
Nothing like
Great.
launching, raising capital.
In the middle of COVID, it was fun.
It's interesting to see how many things have just been kind of born out of the pandemic, where things never slowed down. And it's really interesting to hear some of the angles that you talk about, because we've spent a lot of time during COVID in various episodes of these webinars talking with people about prevalence of telehealth and how basically the geography around healthcare is flattening, right? You can access it from anywhere. And I don't know exactly what the future holds from a global perspective, but one of the things we've seen over and over and over again is that people from everywhere are drawn to basically the high level of expertise, much of which we have in New York. Whether it's New York or California or anything like that, there are centers that have the best in the world, and this is where people come with the hardest problems and the biggest challenges, right? And again, I don't know how everything is going to evolve, but it's one of these really substantial assets that New York has in terms of expertise, brain power, et cetera. So it's yet another reason that we're excited to be in New York and excited for where things are going. So
you're absolutely right. I just wanted to mention one thing about the telemedicine era. 15 years ago, we were doing telemedicine, and we had two headwinds. Headwind number one was technology, right? Headwind number two was cultural. Most academic medical center physicians and private physicians with academic ties, they didn't like to do that type of stuff. They wanted to be in their office. They wanted to see the patient. They wanted to touch the patient. That was their training. Yeah. And so you need to get over really two cultural humps. Yes. And the great news is COVID, things like this, force majeure changes things. Yeah. And that's what happened here. And so the idea of telemedicine is its time has come, because the last big issue, which was cultural, operational, internal operations, whether physicians adopted it, liked it, and did it, I think that ship has sailed. It's out there.
Yeah, and COVID forced payers to then go what I would say a third hurdle, for at least for in the US, right, which is reimbursement. And so you had to combine a cultural shift with a payment shift. Right. I don't know which one led the other.
I think what happened was it was led it was led, fortunately or unfortunately, by wealthy individuals outside of the U.S. willing to pay cash, and it took it away. And what you just mentioned, Jennifer, actually is still filtering through the system. So you're right, that remains a bit of a headwind. But for a lot of physicians, there was enough market share in terms of their practice pie, that it was fine with them. Now we'll see how that changes. That's a great point. I got to think more about it.
The interesting thing too, right, is that when you're forced to do something, right, when your regular options are taken away, you don't get to have the knee jerk, oh, that's not going to work, we can't do it that way anymore. You do it that way. And a lot of times what that does is it gets people over the initial experience hurdle, and you find a way to do it, and you find places that it's going to work. So again, I see a little bit of pullback from folks in the telehealth market where they're trying to kind of push things back to the hospital. But I imagine that at least in certain areas, I can't imagine that psychiatry or mental health or things like that, I can't imagine that goes back to in person. It's just so much more efficient this way. And I think the patients that use telehealth have almost, by and large, loved the experience. So I'm hoping that this groundswell continues, because we think a lot about, kind of the last mile problem and how do you get healthcare to more patients. And this is just, this just gives you the way to reach many, many people really efficiently. So you have medical excellence.
I think combined with AI, where data can be sifted through and funneled through a requirements panel, right? That this is a physician saying this is the information that I need on this type of patient, and have it delivered to them in advance of and then subsequent to for follow-up. I think that's going to mean a lot in terms of not only speed but accuracy, and quality as well.
You're still going to have kind of the same amount of time with your physician one way or another, but making your physician as efficient as possible with that time is really how you get the best care, right? It's almost if it's very much, if I had this information when I saw the patient, I may have done things differently. Well, you should have that information by the time you see the patient, right? And if we can make it so that happens, things could be a lot more effective. Right. I mean, I don't go to the doctor very much, and it's usually, the same thing over and over again, where you kind of get spot tests. And if we have, I think better information is really going to change the way that we do a lot of things. And you mentioned preventative medicine before. I don't know what kind of things need to fall into place first for that to happen. But I'm very interested to see if we can actually get to a point like that where we start to flip the script, say, either a company like Grail or other liquid biopsy companies where you could start to see things earlier. Hopefully we start seeing these things, turn around and really affect the outcomes curve for patients, because that's really where the end game is.
It's out there. There's no doubt. We're seeing it now.
John, what do you see as far as, before we delve more deeply into the capital piece, what do you see as the real growth area for international patients seeking care in the US? Like we talked a little bit about, like you said, what 60% of those have been cancer related. So like if you do surgery, you clearly cannot do that virtually. But right, but sort of what are the growth areas from an international standpoint?
Well, I think it's interesting. I agree with you. You can't do surgery remotely or yet, but
the robots are pretty good.
The reality there is that let me give you the paradigm shift that we've seen in the last 15 or 20 years. 15, 20 years ago, when someone, an international patient, presented themselves with a cancer, major cancer, in the United States, 90% of their care would have to be delivered in the United States over a long period of time. You were a captive of that system. You had to be there. The change now is, and we do this all the time, is now we bring a patient, we precept them here in the United States. We tell them expect to spend between 2 and 4 weeks with us, generally between 2 and 4 weeks. The job is we get the cancer dialed in terms of its, down to the genome. What is the nature of this? What is this cancer? What's the nature of this cancer? And where is it? Okay, where is it? And then make a determination in terms of treatment. Most of the treatment now can be done in most major economies around the world. Certainly in the economies that we work in, which is Eastern Europe and China and mainland Europe. So therefore, the switch has been now 10% here in the United States, maybe 15%, and the rest outside of the U.S. So what does that mean? Well, that means a couple of things. The what we call headwind of not being able to be in a different place other than home without people that love you around you and things like that for a 6-month period. Now it's a month period, much more edible, right? Much more consumable. So a lot of things have changed from a technology standpoint, where it has expanded, Jennifer, the population that can qualify and be interested in receiving their care. We used to have a lot of people that would say, yeah, I know the care is better over there, but I just can't see myself being there for 6 months and not seeing my children, not seeing my mom, dad, my family, and things like that. And therefore they declined, as a matter of fact. So they said, I am willing to get second-tier care to be in a place where I'm comfortable. Now we don't have that bad choice anymore.
Yeah.
Do you think that, have you seen any data on are outcomes better if they have their sort of intrinsic support system for a greater period of their treatment period?
No, I haven't seen any reliable data on that. And one of the problems is the quality of the handoff from a data standpoint. So let's say they go to, I won't name a place because I don't want to hurt anybody, but let's say they're from Moscow and they have, or let's say a second tier city in Russia, and they come to Sloan Kettering to get their cancer care, and then they go back to Ekaterinburg or a place like that. You're not going to get that data, and certainly we're not in a position we can collect it, but we're not in a position to disseminate it and to any government body or anything like that. All of our stuff is very private.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, Jennifer, that you mentioned this. You mentioned, John, the ability to connect with your families. It's one of the things that we've talked about a lot. We had our patient engagement summit in the spring, and there's so much that we can learn and understand by actually listening to patients and understanding what's really important to them. And in a lot of ways, it's not just what's the care that I'm going to receive, but how am I going to receive it, and how is it going to affect me and everybody else around me? And I think business models and healthcare is going to become more and more attuned to that. We're seeing many more technologies designed to help people receive care at home. And again, I think if we keep patients in an environment that feels safe and healthy for them while delivering high quality care, there's just a lot of things that helps with.
Yeah, I think in the United States, there's plenty of data that suggests when you're getting high quality care within a family system that works, it's better. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. And the family unit is something that can kind of help with adherence. It can help with your emotional state. It helps with so many things and helps keep people on the right track. When people are alone or isolated, it gets much more difficult.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we get to so Medical Excellence Capital. You now have you've formed a venture fund throughout the gulf of COVID, if you will, somehow virtually, right? I mean, I suppose you knew the LPs beforehand, but it would really be something to have raised and closed a fund without ever meeting anybody face to face. So just from a storytelling standpoint, can we say that even if it's not entirely true, can we say that you raised an entire fund and closed it without actually meeting anyone?
Well, we could say it, but I wouldn't be able to agree with it. But okay, I did know. Okay. I did know a lot of the people beforehand, and many of them have been members of Medical Excellence for a while. So they had some experience with us in the past. And
so what were kind of some of the big drivers around, basically, wanting to put a fund together, and how do you get from kind of the idea of a fund to, quote unquote, to the focus of the fund, right? There's the high level idea of wanting to invest in the American health system, and then there's kind of the level of focus and strategy that you need to bring with an investment team. So how do those two worlds merge?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Because it's something that I experienced and pondered afterwards in terms of how it happened. But it's for me, it's a situation where I was very happy running Medical Excellence International with Olga. We were having a good time. We were traveling around the world. We were doing interesting things, and we were helping a lot of people. So that was a very enjoyable job. And so when Alexander Nessis came knocking and thought it would be a good idea for me to run a fund, I basically had really two questions. The big one was, what do I know about running a fund? I've never run a fund before. I've run a publicly held company. I've done some big projects and things like that, and run a what I would call a medium-sized consulting company, not even a huge consulting company. So I started to think, my self-analysis was at a lower scale and level than Alexander Nessis. But Alexander came up with this concept with me in mind, and the reason that he did was he looked at Medical Excellence International very independently. I was in the weeds. He was outside of the weeds, and what he saw was an incredible ecosystem of academic medical centers, very close personal and professional relationships with hundreds of doctors around the country. And these are the people that are the innovators in terms of, these are the physician scientists and the PhDs. He saw our ability to get people into experimental programs and our ability to find them, and the intelligence capability that our company built over a decade, which we took very, very seriously in terms of who's best, what's best, how best, and what's future best. And he looked at that ecosystem and he said, gee, if you were to apply that into a capital base, which is his expertise, he's one of the best in that, gee, wouldn't it be an interesting life sciences company? And so he I won't say he convinced me, because as soon as he came up with the idea and told me about it, it just opened up a lane that I just hadn't seen before, but the lane was very clear. I understood it right away. But I also knew that I needed adult supervision around me in terms of the investment processes. So the next job was to make sure that we had great people around this Medical Excellence International ecosystem, which automatically I ported right into Medical Excellence Capital. But I needed people that really knew how to exploit it, how to make it run and be extremely valuable under or within the prism of a venture capital company. So my first hire was Joni Mancini, who's been a friend of mine for almost 30 years. Her husband's one of my 2 or 3 best friends in the world. We've known each other forever. Our sons are best friends. But Joni has run, she's run 3 or 4 funds, 3 of which were startups. So she knew how to do this, and she had a template. So I asked Joni to join. She was the first hire. The second was Eric Heil, who is a very interesting person in that he's had a successful operating career and a successful investing career at Domain Associates. So Eric was our first investment professional hire as managing partner. And serendipitously, and this is why you can never plan perfectly for things, because there's no way to plan for this. Domain was just at the point where they had decided not to proceed with fund number 10. They've had 9 successful funds. They're an incredible, incredible organization.
Yeah, they've done very well.
Don't give them a lot of credit for what they've done for our industry. But three of the partners had decided, there's 5 partners, 3 of the partners had decided to retire. That left 2 partners figuring out what they wanted to do next. They were thinking about building their own fund. They connected with Eric. Eric told them what we were doing. And I think even equally importantly, told them about Medical Excellence International and the platform. And they said, we've been looking for this. So they came over. So I had built, within 2 months, I had a built-in team of individuals that have done 17 company creations, invested in 45 companies, and have had a number of multi-billion-dollar exits built into this company. On top of that, with the Medical Excellence International network and overlay, we created what we call an expert panel, our expert council. And the Medical Excellence Council is 100 right now, 137 doctors, not doctors, 137 scientists. They could be physicians, PhDs, or a combination thereof. And these are individuals who are world-class experts within our thesis. And we can call on them for due diligence. We call on them for developmental work. We call with them after we invested in the company, as we're moving along, we use them for test cases. I mean, it's an incredible network, again, across about 30 or 40 institutions around the country. And that's a Medical Excellence International asset that we ported right over to Medical Excellence Capital.
Yeah, if you told a recruiter your recruiting strategy and timeline and then told them, eventually how it worked, I don't think they would believe you that was possible.
I know. So it's just serendipity. That's what it was.
You mentioned your thesis a second ago, and I think for edification of the audience. So what is kind of the grounded thesis for what Medical Excellence Capital is working on and trying to do? What kind of deals fit into your purview, and what are the operations like?
Yeah, and it is an issue. It's a settled issue, but we love everything. We love scientists. We love all the great things that are coming out of these incredible institutions, but we can't manage and invest in all of them. So we took a very small part of the world, but we think one that's it's an arena that we believe is going to be very important in the future. So we like gene therapy, cell therapy. We love mitochondrial medicine and the metabolome and what's going on there. We like synthetic biology. And then the area that we really like as well, and we've already invested in, is the area where AI meets medical research and drug discovery. We really, really like those areas. We have made 4 investments so far in the last, since we started. Our official start date was February 1, 2021. So we're about a 6-month-old company at this point. We've made 4 investments. We're about to make a 5th. 2 of those investments are legacies, though. These are projects that either myself or one of my other, I have to talk about my other 2 partners. I have to do that. So let me do that for a moment. So the 2 people that came over from Domain are Brian Halleck and Kim Kamdar, and both are very, very well-known figures within the investment VC investment community, and that gave us a built-in team ready to go from day one. Particularly because Domain had decided not to build a new fund and had begun to exhaust its new money capability to put new monies into projects, and people knocked on their door every day of the week. So there was a bit of a backlog in terms of projects for us all to look at. We've looked at about 150 projects already this year, and we've made 4 investments as a result.
And that actually, John, we had actually, while you were talking, a question came in and you already answered part of it. It said, congrats on the first 100 million close of the fund in November. What is your total target amount? And then they said that I don't see any portfolio companies on your website. have you made investments yet? You just answered that question. What about the what's your total target?
Yeah, our target is 200 million. We think between 200 and 250 million is an ideal level for 5 investing partners to work together. So we don't think it's going to get much larger than that.
And will you put your companies, your portfolio companies, up on the website at some point?
Yes, where it's one of those things where you're trying to get a lot of things done. So what we really concentrated on was less in marketing and more in getting a few really high quality companies to invest in, find them, invest in them, start to nurture them, build it. And again, one thing I want to mention is one of the things that we're doing is more company creation than most organizations do. We'll make between 12 and 15 investments in total, but we think we'll do probably 6, maybe even 7, well, probably 6 company creations. And that means that you have to have a whole different set of capabilities within that. And one of the things that we've tasked Joni to do, along with our resource partners out there in the marketplace, is to kind of create what I call company creation in a box, which means that we bring the technological and the market know-how from the investment partners, but we're also bringing in, well, we don't want the CEO worrying, how do I get my EIN? How do I get my checkbook open? And what service providers do I use? We provide all of that. It's a turnkey operation ready to go. So we've been concentrating on that and less on our website, which will be officially launched, I think the second week of September. And
I
yes,
don't know that
we will have, by then we'll have 5 portfolio companies on there.
Yeah, I don't know that your fund performance is going to be tied to your website launch. It sounds like
I don't think anybody cares
on the right things. Some people might care, but I don't know that that's going to make a big difference in how you invest capital. And it's interesting that you're doing the back end stuff. There was one of the people that runs Andreessen Horowitz wrote a book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and that was one of the big things that both of them realized when they started that fund, is they were funding all of these terrific entrepreneurs who would then get stuck in the weeds of again, applying for EINs and all of that stuff. And they said, stop doing that. We'll take care of the back end boring stuff for you. Please go do the things that you're good at, because they realized that they were investing in these people to create the things and realize the dream that they wanted to do. And if they got tripped up with the small stuff, that wasn't really helping their investments terribly much. So there's another question here that hits on something.
I was
just
going to say,
keep going. I didn't interrupt you.
How very brilliant and high-level people get locked up in what for others are very simple processes and things. And we just said, let's just take that off the table.
If you're someone that can actually envision and execute on a thing that brings a novel cell therapy to market, but you're really simply not good at kind of mundane form filling out and that kind of things, those are things you should not be spending your time on. So we had another really good question here that dovetails into what you're talking about in terms of kind of company creation and the expertise around you. And he says, does your company have the kind of drug development and regulatory expertise to monetize a gene therapy asset? And I think you mentioned your web of advisors, but again, this is something that's actually a little further down the road. So how do you think about that kind of challenge? Are those levels of expertise that you add on a per company basis, or do you have those folks around you too?
No, it's a combination of two. We have in-house, let's say for gene therapy, we have in-house in combination of our scientific advisory board, our direct scientific advisory board, which is an incredible group of talented people in that area. Our scientific advisory board and our what we call Met Council are both tied strictly to our thesis and nothing more. So we have plenty of expertise that we can tap into both on the due diligence, evaluating a company, evaluating an area, evaluating a specific technology, evaluating a trend, and also the question of leapfrog technologies, where yeah, you know, there's a certain a certain gene therapy that's great, except that by the time you get it out, there's going to be, you know, 2 more generations past it in other. So we look at all of those things, and we draw in our MEC Council and our Scientific Advisory Board. So it's a combination. There have been situations where we went outside of that, especially for market condition questions and things like that. But we have a network of available people in that arena as well.
Yeah. And I think once you get onto the kind of development and commercial side, you're really in a realm there where the operating team is going to have to take it forward, right? You could have that expertise internally at the fund level, but once it's kind of either ready to go to market or thinking about it, you kind of need that team to gel around the commercial culture. You need that to be in place as things are going to launch and move up.
Of course, we're just you know, at that level, we're a resource, but it's a good resource, and it's one that can be you know, used at any time. All of our CEOs, portfolio CEOs, have access to our network any day, every day.
Mm-hmm. So this is a good segue here, because you talked about, you know, you've done a few deals. You'll probably do, you know, 12 or so by the end of the fund, and you know, the ecosystem is going to produce more companies than that over that time, right? So I'm interested in how you've kind of stepped in here and, you know, can actually continue to be both an ambassador for science and kind of help keep things moving in the ecosystem. Because, you know, we've talked about this. If there's a deal that you really like, but it's not going to, you know, fit into your thesis, you know, as an investor, how do you kind of help that deal find a way to get done if it's something that you actually think is really good?
Well, I'm going to answer that in 2 levels, okay, and I'll do it backwards. Answer directly, and then the indirect. So, on a direct basis, you know, we decided very early. You know, my partners are incredibly talented, but more importantly, they're good people. They really love the things that they do, the business that they're in. And try to nurture that ecosystem. So that's built into our DNA. So if we see something that we like, first of all, if we see something that we don't like, right, and it's fixable, we will give constructive criticism. We will give advice, and we'll try to help the entrepreneur. We really, you know, these things are struggles for scientists to get things out into the marketplace, get it funded. That's a struggle. It's hard. It's sometimes, I won't say it's demeaning, but sometimes it's there's a lot of rejection in that business.
Yeah.
And therefore we take those people very, very seriously. And as a result of that, we try to help everyone that we meet. So we've seen 160 some odd companies. In a number of those situations, we have said, no, this isn't perfectly right for us. We're only going to make a few investments in this area, and it's not right for us. But let us tell you what we think, and we'll write a little note to them about management team, about marketability, about technology, about who they might want to speak with other than us, that may be more appropriate for them. We do that every day of the week, literally, and I'm not kidding. That's not an exaggeration. Every day we're trying to help somebody in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you know, in many ways, the phrase goes that an informative no is far better than an enthusiastic maybe, right? So
you and I have talked about that pretty extensively. I agree with that. That's absolutely true.
Honestly, the death of a venture by 1,000 maybes, right? You know, after a while, having people tell you that they really love what you're doing it's not terribly encouraging anymore, because unless there's something at the end of it that's actionable, it's a Hallmark card. Basically, it's nice, but it really doesn't get you anywhere, and it certainly doesn't help pay any bills.
That's right. That's right. And you know,
uh,
we all have a duty to the industry, you know, I think. And certainly my
I,
partners, yeah, I believed it intrinsically, never practiced it because I wasn't in the business. Now I have the ability to do that, but my partners are big believers of that, and they came to the company in as we were creating our internal culture. We decided we're going to be a company that's good, you know.
yeah, and that's encouraging on so many levels, because I think, I think New York has a good and healthy ecosystem for this. And, as we grow, and, as people kind of step in and get more prominent here, having more good actors within the ecosystem, I think helps everybody across the board. I think it will help with, kind of the interplay between kind of life sciences and what I'll call digital health, or therapeutics, and any of the digital side of things. I think having more and more good actors on that helps the right deals find the right investors, and helps really good companies grow here, regardless of how they put down roots. We did have a question about,
I just want to mention one thing, if I can,
Sure.
Matt, and just about what you're saying about, New York. One of the big frustrations that I had, and a number of people have had over the years, was this is a region with 7 major academic medical centers that did not have a very strong biotech ecosystem. And
You're very familiar with that.
And I know, no, that's why exactly. But I look at that as it's look, you can't look in the past. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But looking into the future, in terms of tapping into that, it's going to be an incredible decade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you are very much preaching to the choir on the
Well,
New York opportunity here.
You're the choir in the church,
Well,
so yeah, I get it.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
we're all here.
listen, I've been here for 15 years, and I get really tired about people, asking about what the next Kendall Square is going to be, or the next South San Francisco. And my thought has always been that I think New York can be great, but I think New York is going to be great in its own way, right? I think we have a level of, like you said, we have 7 academic medical centers here, and it's staggering. The diversity of patients we have here is unbelievable. The bed that innovation can come from in New York looks different than other places, and that's great, right? We don't need another carbon copy of Boston and San Francisco. They're actually very good at what they do.
Anywhere in
We
New
don't.
York.
Nope.
And
we don't need that.
We have the ability now, tabula rasa, right? New sheet. We have the ability to avoid that.
Yeah. So one of our Jay Mundi asked, he said he has an AI client. Just in general, for our audience, what's the best way for kind of new deals or new technologies to get to you, right? What's the best way for you to find new deals? Or if I'm an entrepreneur, what's the best way for me to connect with you?
We've received a lot of referrals from academic medical centers, which is not a surprise. We get a lot of deal flow from my partners who have had careers of note in the industry, and so far it's been through word of mouth. I think that as we do more of these things, as a company, we're only 6 months old, so we're gonna grow and be different in the future. And our website is up and running, and things like that. There'll be ways to do that. But how an individual gets to us that doesn't know somebody that we know, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And one of the things that we're going to do is we'll get more involved with you and your organization, and get more out on the speaking circuit, in terms of not promoting medical excellence capital, but promoting the themes that we believe in, and the technologies that we believe in going forward. I think that's going to be the best way for individuals to get to know us. I'm also hoping that other firms that are in the same business that we're in will take the same tack that we do, which is, if it's not right for me, right, well, we'll send it over to medical excellence. It sounds like a good situation for them. We're hoping for that give and take, and quite willing to have it unrequited to start with, and then reciprocal as we go along.
You gave me a layup and then made the basket yourself with the more engaging with NewYorkBIO's audience.
That's
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
so. Before we get to the end, I want to thank David Kalo for this, because you're on the board of Vets Moving Forward, and I want to just kind of give you a little bit of an opportunity to mention that, because really it's a great organization with
That's
I
so
think, an
lovely.
important mission. And especially we think about kind of what's happening in Afghanistan. We've been there for 20 years, and we think about all of the things that our troops do, and in many ways, they come home and don't necessarily get a lot of the services or the care that they need. So can you talk a little bit about what Vets Moving Forward does?
Yeah, first of all, we certainly separate, policy from the things that those individuals do. Because, whether the policy is correct, incorrect, imperfect, whatever, they go in
These are
country
patients,
and they risk their lives every day. So medical excellence is a big supporter of veterans moving forward. And I started, I'm a founding board member. So this company, charity, is 11 years old. The organization has one mission, and it's a very simple one. We raise dogs to help veterans. And we are the timeline is from the time that the dog is born to the time when the dog needs to be cycled out because they can't help the veteran anymore. We support the veteran. We make changes to their home. We do extensive training, not just early on, but over the life of the dog. We provide all vet bills. We provide all we just make sure that vet has a dog that means something to them. And it's amazing what these dogs can do. They'll do things like, the very simple things, most every dog that we train can do. But then we have some highly, highly trained dogs where they'll know exactly what your 2 p.m. prescription is, and they'll bring it over to the soldier. I just can't tell you. Sometimes it's even hard to talk about because it's so ingrained into my soul, this organization. But all I could say about it is that it's run by the former head of the Purple Heart Association, Gordon Sumner. He's our CEO. We have an incredible board, including 5 flag officers, 5 1-star or better. And we've helped a lot of veterans over the years. And bringing a dog to an emotionally problematic patient and a physically challenged patient, you would not believe the change in their demeanor and their abilities. So if anybody wants to support veterans moving forward, know that we don't take any limousines. We don't take any, no jet flights, nothing. It is all the money goes straight into those veterans and training great dogs for those veterans. My commercial is over.
No, thank you.
That's okay. I mean,
thank you.
My husband and I my husband's on the board, and we support a charity for active duty military families. So strengthening the family around down in North Carolina, and it's sort of right near Fort Bragg. So I personally appreciate the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah,
thank you.
And we touched on this before, and this kind of brings everything full circle, because we are, at the heart of everything. This is, a set of patients that need something, and it's not just services. It's not just drugs and technologies, and sometimes it is as simple as support, as emotional connection, and it's a thing that a patient needs in addition to all the other things that medicine can give them. And there's not a lot of difference there between, allowing a patient to stay with their families or listening to the things that they need and all of the other things that go around a treatment. And oh, look at this. Andrew Koopman had just written in, one of my best friends is a recipient of one of your dogs, and the dog does unbelievable things that has changed his life. Thank you very much. It's all of this stuff is important, right? You think a lot about why in many ways people are drawn to healthcare, why people are in this industry. And I think almost universally, not everybody has the same reasons for getting into it in the first place. But I think once you're in it for a while, it becomes about patients, it becomes about impact, and it becomes about kind of the outcomes of the things that you do much more than, what are the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So,
that's a great point. I just want to mention one thing about that. In several different areas where we're investing into, Medical Excellence International has patients that need those technologies. Right. And we just made an investment in a drug for ALS. And we have, 3 patients right now with ALS. It's a horrible, horrible disease. They're looking for anything out there that can help them. And so, it's very interesting how the mission of MEI is tied to the mission of MEC. And it's in the lives of the patients that we have over the years.
Well, I think your LP had a really good vision here. I think when you look at things from 10,000 feet, you see a lot of need. And, when you can think about it, you look around at the network of people that you're connected to, and there's all of these smart people. You look at the engines of innovation, where things come from. And, sometimes the missing ingredient is just capital, right? There's capital, there's expertise, there's how to apply it, but none of it gets done. None of it gets done if the capital isn't there. Right. And that's I think one of the missing ingredients in a lot of ways. There's always a lot of will, and there's always a lot of really smart people around, but connecting those ideas with the capital to get them done, that's kind of step one. And in order for any of the experiments to run, or anything to take the next step, you got to have, you have to have $1, you have to have the team come together and really just kind of get the opportunity to do something special.
Yeah, and most especially physician scientists and PhDs, most of them need help from a business standpoint, and helping them see around the corners. And if you can help them do that, and also take some of the operating burden off, so that they can concentrate on developing great technologies, you've done a good thing for them, and you've done a good thing for yourself. It's something that we really believe in within our organization.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple. I was going to say we have a couple minutes to wrap up, and your fund has been live since February. You've done 4 out of your 12 investments. So at this pace, you're going to be done by you're going to be done by St. Patrick's Day next year. So what's next on the horizon for Medical Excellence Capital? Where do you see things going?
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention, as we were talking about earlier about that 2-pronged question, the other thing that we're quite interested in is nurturing scientists at an inflection point that's earlier than when ready for venture capital. But we decided to put our money where our mouth was on that one, and we've started an organization. It's a philanthropic organization. We call it MERIT, which is the Medical Excellence Research Investment Trust. And that organization is a charitable organization. We tithe 2% to the LPs, and a lot more from the management team. By the way, I'll say we're all in it for good sums, and we're going to nurture probably 30 to 35 scientists within our thesis, because it's what we know, and we're tuning it to the physicians or scientists that need money right before professional money would come in, because that's a really important inflection point. And a lot of funding dries up amazingly right before it's actually going to be perfect for folks like us. So Kim Kamdar, my partner, and myself independently came up with this idea. So when she joined the company, we started talking about what really is important to us, what we want to do with our lives in the future. She said, I had this idea. I don't know if you'd really believe in it or not. And she's talked about the charitable arm. And I said, I have to tell you something. And this is absolutely true. I'll show you. And I showed her the documents. My original documents was to call for that 2% tithe, but she had more bravery than I did. I decided that I was going to do it in Fund 2 rather than in Fund 1. I wanted to show, being a new fund person, I wanted to show some results. But now she gave me the bravery to do it together. So now we have Merit, which is, I think, a great program. I'm really excited.
You're gonna allocate Fund 2 before you even raise Fund 2. So in wrapping up, we had a question from the audience as to how people could volunteer to help with Merit. I don't know if you're looking for things like that, but certainly if you are, we're happy to help connect.
Please get in touch with us. It's a brand new idea. We just incorporated, putting the papers together. We're working on our investment thesis, right? And that part of that is how we're going to operate. Individuals that want to help in these things, I mean, we're not going to turn it away. So please get in touch with me, and we'll sort it out. If the answer isn't perfect early on, it's probably because we haven't thought everything through yet. But we know what we want to do. We think we know how to do it, and getting help would be kind of nice. So that sounds really good.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great, and I feel like we could talk for another hour. We'll have to have you back another time. So everyone, thanks so much for joining us. John, thank you.
Jennifer,
thanks, John.
Thank you so much. Derek, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to New York Bio's virtual breakfast series. Join us every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for more discussions with leaders from across the healthcare spectrum. For more information on New York Bio, please visit us at www.newyorkbio.org.